In October of 2021, I booked an Airbnb for a weekend solo trip. I just finished a tough few months at work, and I wanted complete isolation. No city noise, no people, just some peace in nature. I found a cabin in northern Vermont. It was marketed as a secluded, off-grid retreat. The photos showed a small A-frame surrounded by woods, with a fireplace, one bedroom, and solar power. It had dozens of 5-star reviews. People described it as peaceful, therapeutic, and truly disconnected. The host's name was Owen. He responded fast, answered my questions politely, and sent an extra message the day before check-in with specific directions. The cabin wasn't on Google Maps. He told me to follow a gravel road off Route 114 until I saw a blue reflector nailed to a tree. From there, I'd turn onto a narrower path that wouldn't look like a road, but was. It was that kind of place. I arrived a little before sunset. The road was barely wide enough for my rental car. Branches scraped the sides, and I had to stop once to move a fallen log. There was no cell signal. After about 15 minutes of slow driving, the path opened into a small clearing. The cabin was there. Dark wood, A-frame style, just like the photos. A fire pit sat out front. There were 2 wooden chairs and a folding table on the porch. No other buildings. No power lines. Just trees in every direction. There was a small lockbox on the front door. I typed in the code Owen had sent me. Inside, the cabin smelled like cedar and dust. There was a fireplace, a queen bed tucked into a loft, a kitchenette with a gas burner, and a small bookshelf. No television, no Wi-Fi. I had exactly what I came for. For the first few hours, everything was fine. I unpacked, lit a fire, and sat outside with a beer. It was almost dead silent. You can hear leaves fall. It was so quiet that when an owl called somewhere far off, it made me jump. The only odd thing was how dark it got, and how fast. Once the sun dropped behind the trees, it was pitch black within minutes. I don't mean dim, I mean total blackness beyond the reach of the firelight. You couldn't see more than 20 feet in any direction. It was a bit unsettling, but I thought that was the whole point. Unplug, be uncomfortable, disconnect. I went inside, locked the door, and climbed into bed. That night, I woke up around 3 a.m. No reason, I was just awake. And I heard something outside. It wasn't loud, a soft sound, crunching, like footsteps on leaves. I stayed still in bed, listening. The crunching outside was slow, spaced out, 1 or 2 steps at a time. Then silence. Then a few more steps. Not an animal scurrying too steady. It sounded like someone walking and stopping, walking and stopping. I sat up and looked toward the small window near the loft. It was too dark to see anything. I thought about turning on the solar lantern beside the bed, but I didn't want to make it obvious that I was awake. The footsteps stopped. Then I heard a faint creak from the porch boards below. That's when I got nervous. The front porch was maybe 15 feet from where I lay. The front door was locked. I double-checked it, but that didn't stop the thought that someone might be right outside it. I didn't move for 10 minutes. I just sat, listening. Nothing. Eventually, I worked up the nerve to climb down from the loft and peek through the window by the door. I couldn't see anything but my own reflection. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat in the wooden chair by the fireplace with the lantern dimmed. The silence outside had returned completely. By dawn, I'd almost convinced myself I imagined it. Still, I stepped out the door cautiously that morning. The grass was wet with dew. The fire pit was cold. I looked around the porch and the clearing. I didn't see any footprints or signs anyone had been there. I texted the host once I got signal during a hike later that day. I kept it casual, just asked if there were any other cabins nearby or if hunters came through the area. He replied, "No one nearby. You've got the entire ridge to yourself. Why?" I didn't answer. That night, I built another fire and tried to relax. I drank some whiskey and read a few pages of a book I'd brought. But as soon as it got dark, that same tight feeling returned. I sat on the porch until about 10, then headed inside. Before going to bed, I wedged one of the kitchen chairs under the doorknob. It wouldn't stop someone determined, but it made me feel better. I fell asleep sometime after midnight. Around 2:45, I woke up again. Not from a noise, from light. There was a soft, pulsing glow coming from the loft window. Not moonlight, not firelight. It was white, flickering, like the light from a phone screen. It moved, sweeping slowly left to right. Someone was walking through the trees with a flashlight. The flashlight beam moved in slow arcs across the trees, about 30 feet from the cabin. Whoever held it wasn't trying to find the path. They were scanning the woods deliberately. I ducked low and killed the lantern. The light didn't point toward the cabin. Not yet. It just swept the tree line, slow and steady, like whoever was out there was waiting for something, looking. I backed away from the window and sat in the dark. My heart was racing. I couldn't think of a single good reason someone would be out there at 3 in the morning, especially since the host said no one else was around for miles. The light disappeared after maybe 2 minutes, gone just as quietly as it came. But I didn't go back to bed. At first light, I walked out to where I'd seen the flashlight. It wasn't far, just down the slope past the fire pit between a cluster of birch trees. The ground was soft from rain earlier in the week. It only took a few seconds to find what I hoped I wouldn't. Footprints. Boot prints, deep enough to be recent. I followed them for maybe 10 yards, but they trailed off toward the thicker woods. On instinct, I circled the cabin before going back inside. That's when I noticed something else. Near the base of a tree, close to the back of the cabin, was a small metal object sticking out of the dirt. I pulled it loose. A trail camera. It was zip-tied low, maybe 10 inches off the ground. Not the kind of thing a casual hiker would use. This was a wide-angle infrared cam, meant for monitoring games or something else. And it was pointed straight at the cabin. I brought it inside and pulled the SD card. No laptop, no way to check it. I texted Owen again, this time directly. Was someone near the property last night? I saw a flashlight in the woods. Also found a trail cam aimed at the cabin. Please let me know what's going on. I waited an hour, no response. That's when I made the decision to pack up early. I stuffed my bag, grabbed everything, and put the trail cam in my car. But when I tried to start the engine, the dash lights flickered. It clicked once, then went dead. Battery. I hadn't left the lights on, no doors ajar. The car was maybe 2 years old. And now I was stuck in the woods with no signal, and someone had been walking around my cabin in the dark. I slammed the steering wheel and got out. I opened the hood like I knew what I was doing. I didn't. The battery looked fine, no corrosion, nothing loose. But the car wouldn't start. No cell service meant I couldn't call for help. My best option was to hike back to the gravel road where I'd had signal the day before. That would take an hour minimum, and I'd have to leave my stuff behind. I stood there for a while, weighing it. The sun was going down. That's when I heard something behind the cabin. Just a small movement, maybe a branch snapping, then silence again. I froze. Waited. Nothing. I left my bag and walked around the side of the cabin slowly. I didn't call out. I didn't want to let anyone know I was coming. I just moved quietly. Nothing was there. No one. But I noticed something I hadn't before. On the back wall of the cabin, near the corner, was a small circle where the dirt looked disturbed, like someone had been digging. I looked closer. Another trail cam, half buried, not pointed at the woods, pointed at the window of the bathroom. This wasn't just some random hunter or hiker. Someone had placed multiple cameras around the property. Cameras meant to spy, not watch for animals. And one of them had been recently removed. I backed away and walked quickly inside, locked the door, pulled the curtains shut, heart pounding. I had one more thought, and it made my skin crawl. I climbed up to the loft and checked the smoke detector above the bed. It had a blinking red light. When I twisted it off the ceiling and opened the casing, my stomach dropped. It wasn't a smoke detector. It was a camera, small, wired into a dummy battery with a micro SD card slotted inside. Whoever owned this cabin had been watching people in bed. My thoughts raced. Owen was the listed host, but what if he wasn't the only one coming out here? Or what if Owen didn't exist? I grabbed a knife from the kitchen drawer. It was dull, barely sharp enough to cut fruit, but it was something. I sat at the table, dead quiet, waiting for daylight. And then, just after midnight, came a knock on the door. 3 slow, even taps. Not loud, just deliberate. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The knock came again. 3 slow taps, a few seconds apart. Whoever was outside wasn't speaking. They weren't trying the handle, just standing there. After a minute, the knocking stopped. I waited another 15 before creeping to the front window and peeking out through the gap in the curtain. No one on the porch, no flashlight, no sound. But I didn't sleep. I sat in the chair, holding the knife in my lap, staring at the front door until the first light of dawn broke through the trees. I grabbed my bag and left everything else behind. Left the trail cams, the knife, even my food. I just walked straight down the path toward the gravel road. Didn't stop, didn't look back. It took an hour to get to the road. I kept expecting to hear footsteps behind me, but it stayed quiet. When I finally saw the pavement and the blue reflector nailed to the tree, I almost cried. Signal came back a few minutes later. I called a tow service. Took them 2 hours to reach me. The guy who showed up didn't say much, just gave me a weird look when I told him where my car was stuck, like he'd heard something before. I didn't say a word about the camera in the smoke detector, or the one aimed at the bathroom, or the person knocking at 1 a.m. Once I got to town, I filed a police report. They took it seriously, came out to investigate the next day. They found the cameras, confirmed that the smoke detector unit had video recording hardware. They even pulled the card and found clips, not just of me, but of at least 4 other guests from the past few months. Every one of them showed someone, always at night, walking around the cabin with a flashlight. The host profile for Owen disappeared 2 days later. Airbnb said the listing had been flagged and permanently removed. They refunded me and apologized, but they wouldn't give me any information about who owned the property, citing privacy policy. The police never made an arrest. They told me the cabin had probably been owned under a shell name. No one ever met the host in person. The reviews were likely faked. The cameras were professionally installed and wiped between stays. I still think about what would have happened if I'd answered that knock, or if I hadn't noticed the blinking red light. I haven't used Airbnb since, and I'll never stay anywhere again that isn't within walking distance of another human being. This happened to me in 2017, when I was 16. I used to babysit for a family that lived just a few blocks from my house. The parents were young, friendly, and always paid well, so I never really hesitated when they asked me to watch their 4-year-old daughter, Lily, on a Friday night. They were going out for dinner and said they'd be back by 11 p.m. I got to the house around 6:30, just before sunset. Lily was already in her pajamas, and after a quick dinner and some cartoons, she went to bed pretty easily by 8:30. The house was quiet. I remember sitting on the couch with the baby monitor next to me, scrolling through my phone with the television on low. Around 9:45, I started to feel uneasy. It started when I thought I heard soft footsteps upstairs. At first, I assumed it was Lily. Maybe she had gotten up to go to the bathroom. I turned the volume up on the baby monitor, but all I heard was the soft hum of the room. No movement, no sounds. A minute later, I heard it again. A soft creak from the upstairs hallway. This time, I muted the television completely. I waited. Silence. I stood up and walked to the bottom of the stairs, calling up gently, "Lily, you okay?" No answer. I went upstairs slowly, turning on the hallway light. Her bedroom door was closed. I knocked softly and opened it. She was still asleep, curled up with her blanket. The room was cold. I walked back toward the stairs and something caught my eye. From the corner of the hallway, near the guest bedroom, I swear I saw movement. Just a flicker of something, like someone ducking into the room. I froze. There shouldn't have been anyone else in the house. I crept toward the guest room and pushed the door open. Nothing. I flipped the light on. The bed was untouched. The closet door was closed. I checked it. Empty. At this point, I started to doubt myself. Maybe I was just being paranoid. I went back downstairs and locked both front and back doors, just in case. Around 10:15, the motion sensor light in the backyard came on. I looked out the kitchen window. Nothing was there. Just as I turned away, I saw a shadow move across the grass. I turned the porch light on and opened the back door. Still, nothing. But I swear to you, I felt someone watching me. Then, from upstairs, I heard a creak. Loud, slow, like someone walking across the hallway. This time, I called 911. I told the dispatcher I thought someone was in the house and that I was babysitting. She stayed on the line with me while I went to get Lily from her room. She was still asleep, but I picked her up gently and went back downstairs, locking myself in the bathroom with her until the police arrived. They searched the house top to bottom and didn't find anyone. But in the attic, they found something strange. A small pile of candy wrappers, a used blanket, and a water bottle. They said it looked like someone had been hiding up there. The worst part? When the parents got home, the dad told me they didn't even know they had attic access. The entrance was in the hallway closet, hidden behind some shelves. It had been undisturbed for years. To this day, no one knows who it was, or how long they'd been up there.